So it's the end of yet another week, and here on this channel that means one thing and one thing only. Every weekend I post an episode of this series we do called Your Take Not Mine, where I turn to you, the viewers, to give me your hottest NBA takes of the week based on what's going on at the time, and I then choose my favorite submissions and discuss them in a video. This week we got a little bit more trade rumor news, especially on the Ben Simmons front, and NBA training camp is also slowly approaching, so of course we have plenty to discuss. In order to submit your takes, I make a community post on either the day of or the day before the video, similar to the one that you see on your screen now, so if you want a chance to be featured in a future episode, be sure to stay on the lookout for that. Before we start though, it turns out about 57% of you watching right now aren't even subscribed to the channel, so please, if you enjoy the content, consider hitting the subscribe button, as not only does it help out a ton, but I'd also very much appreciate it. Now with that being said, let's begin. The first take we'll be discussing today says that the Portland Trail Blazers should simply move on from both Damian Lillard and CJ McCollum at this point. We've discussed this in the past, but this offseason was a big turning point for the Portland franchise because frustration is very clearly growing with their star point guard. The Blazers as a team have been hovering in the above average category of the league for a long time now, as they consistently make the playoffs. They've even made a conference finals appearance too recently, but the number of deep runs they've made lately is far outnumbered by the amount of times they've been first round exits, and Damian Lillard wants to win a ring. The Blazers were put under pressure to be aggressive in their pursuit for improving and becoming title contenders this summer by Damian Lillard, but the moves they actually made this offseason did not exactly demonstrate much aggressiveness. They re-signed a few players, lost some guys in their rotation, and didn't bring in any impactful signings to take their place necessarily, so another season of the same old seems to be on its way. Damian Lillard is not requesting a trade for now, but I don't think anyone would be surprised if he does at some point during the season, and if it does get to that point, then the Blazers will probably have to rebuild. Lillard will have a large price tag on the open market, but the package they would likely receive for him will be oriented more towards the future, and keeping a guy like McCollum around for a rebuild wouldn't make much sense either. So regarding the original take here that we're discussing, I do agree to an extent that if they're going to move Lillard at some point, they may as well move both of them. The next take we'll be discussing comes to us from Ons, and he says that Anthony Edwards has a higher ceiling as a player than LaMelo Ball does. Players drafted at the top of the same draft class will always be compared for years after they get drafted because that's just how sports fans are. So with that being said, LaMelo Ball and Anthony Edwards will probably have the same thing applying to them too, as you can see with this take. Now, a year into their careers, we're talking about two young prospects who both have phenomenal potential, and down the line, I think they should both end up being multiple-time All-Stars as long as they continue on the path that they're on. But when talking about who has the higher ceiling, we have to look at who will be better at their peak. Anthony Edwards is the dynamic and explosive scorer who can drop 20 on any given night already and is a threat from all three levels. He can confidently knock down tough shots, he finishes well around the rim with his explosiveness at the basket, and when his jumper is falling, he is tough to stop. LaMelo, however, is the more all-around offensive player, who plays more as a playmaker and pass-first guy, creating easy points for his teammates, penetrating and then finding the open man, all while still posing as a scoring threat both inside and out. It's very close, and honestly it comes down to preference, but I personally think LaMelo Ball has everything needed to be one of the best point guards in the league down the line, so I ever so slightly think he'll be the better player at his best, while also admitting that Edwards will also be one hell of a player too. The next take we'll be discussing comes to us from Trey, and he says that the 76ers will be worse once they trade Ben Simmons, because losing his defensive impact will outweigh anything they get in return for him. So in this brief dead period in the NBA world right now, the Ben Simmons drama continues to dominate every headline, so of course he's once again going to be discussed in today's episode. Ben is doing everything in his power to force himself out of Philadelphia, and with the antics he's been pulling, combined with how poorly he performed in the playoffs against the Hawks, his price tag has obviously fallen. The likelihood that the 76ers get what they want in a trade for him is looking slim to none at this point, and that's why it's all dragged out as long as it has. So when a move actually does get made, it does seem like the Sixers will have to be the ones that sacrifice in the deal. Ben has very clear, obvious weaknesses, no one can deny that, but his strengths have plugged a lot of holes in the Sixers that went unnoticed over the years. His defense, yes, is an obvious one, as his development into arguably the best perimeter defender has vital to their success as a top-ranked defense over the years, but even offensively, he penetrates, he collapses the defense, and he creates open looks for his teammates with great court vision and passing ability, as well as anybody in the league. And outside of him, the Sixers really don't have any other playmakers like that. Replacing the passing and defense will not be easy, and while they do need and will probably get a shot creator in whatever trade they make, I feel as though those things that Ben does well will be even more obvious when the team struggles in those areas without him. It's such a tough spot to be in, and I'm very interested in continuing to see how the situation plays out for the Sixers down the line. And finally, the last take we'll be discussing today comes to us from Kool-Aid Man, and he says that the Timberwolves should avoid trading for Ben Simmons because of their previous Jimmy Butler fiasco. So there really isn't any correlation between these two things, but I kind of see where he's coming from in a sense. The Wolves invested a lot in trading for Jimmy Butler those years ago, who had a bit of a reputation for being a potential locker room issue. There's obviously so much more that went into the situation, and the negative narrative that was around Jimmy was definitely overblown, but it set the franchise back a ton when Jimmy wanted out, and in the sense of trading for a disgruntled star, that is one way that the situation does relate to the Ben Simmons stuff. The difference, though, is that Ben brings a lot of the things that the Timberwolves team desperately needs, and for a franchise that hasn't won a playoff series since 2004, they can't exactly be very picky. The Wolves need a point guard that makes those around him better, they need defensive help, and they need another star to help make that leap as a team. Reports have come out over the last few days, especially after their GM changes, that seem to indicate that the Wolves will be going hard after Simmons in a trade, and if the Sixers ever accept an offer from them, it's not something the Wolves will have any regrets over, I don't think at all. And with that being said, that's all I have for you today. Make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and comment down below what you think about the takes we discussed. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you all next time.